Bom dia, boa tarde, boa noite, or whatever the case may be. My name is Marcus, and I am the host of the Black Brazil Today YouTube channel, as well as the blackbraziltoday.com blog, where I analyze Brazil from the perspective of race. So, welcome to another video. Today, I'm going to be tackling a video that, or rather, a topic that I guess has been hot for over a week now. And as I often do, when something controversial breaks in the media, often I'll wait a few days just for the smoke to clear so more information can come out before, I address the particular topic. So the origins of this story from today came out, I don't know, probably about 8, 9, 10 days ago or so. By the time I get around to posting this video, probably be about a week and a half by now. So I wanted to go ahead and talk about it because in some ways, it kind of reminds me of not necessarily my experiences, but it just reminds me of, again, uh, over the years that I've traveled to Brazil, it takes me back to the first few times that I traveled. I took a flight from the United States to Brazil, and just, I could say the demographic of what I would see on flights to Brazil, yearly. So in this story from probably about a week and a half ago, I think it's like the end of April, like April 28th, 29th, in a viral video, after a dispute over a backpack, a Black woman is shown being forcibly removed from a flight by Brazil's federal police. So what happened here? Before I even get into the details of what happened in this particular story, I said this in my last video. I said that no matter what topic, area, or genre that you discuss in Brazil, the country has been very successful in pushing these topics under the rug as if everything is just fine. But it's like no matter where you look, no matter what topic that you look into, you're going to find something that, I guess, people on the right would say, okay, well, you're whining again. You what they call in Brazil, they say it's me, me, me. They call it whining. You're blowing something up that's not this, it's not really that big a deal. On the other hand, you have people who are on the left side of the spectrum and they'll pounce on this. And as I said before, sometimes it's not easy to be able to say which side is actually right and which side is wrong. Sometimes we have to look at these situations and just ask the question, well, if the person involved in this particular situation would have had a different skin color, would the outcome have come out the way that it did? And that's what I found myself asking in this particular situation. Just speaking on my own experiences on flights in Brazil. When I first started traveling Brazil in September, I guess it was the last day of August, of September in 2000. And I just remember when I got on that flight, I talked about this in one of my first online posts that I discussed my first, experience in Brazil. And I just described how it was just kind of strange to me how in that first flight, I took a bus. I took a Greyhound bus from Detroit to New York. And I got on a plane at JFK Airport. And if any of you have been to JFK Airport, you know that you can see just about people from seems like every country in the world is going to be at JFK Airport, and that's what I saw. It was just a lot of everybody was there, whether you're Asians or people from India or Latinos, Black folks, white folks. It just seems like a little bit of everybody from the planet you could find at JFK Airport on any given day. So by the time I took the flight, and I think it was about 12, 13 hours to get from New York to Sao Paulo, by the time I got to Sao Paulo, it was a drastically different situation. In New York at the airport, you saw all sorts of people catching flights, all sorts of people on the flights, all sorts of people working at the airport. it was like, representatives of the United Nations, because it was like I saw all types of different people all over that airport. I get off the flight the next day in Sao Paulo, and it was a stark contrast because I just didn't find many black people in that airport, either on the flight. I don't think, I think I was the only black person on that entire flight from New York to Sao Paulo. Again, we're talking about the year 2000. And this is 23, almost 23 years ago. If you, it is 23 years, but if we just go back to like August, September of 2000, it hasn't been a full, complete 23 years. So things have changed a lot in these last 2 decades. But to go back to that time, I just remember it the social equality that you inequality that you saw, you could just gauge it from that airplane flight. Like I said, I was the only black person on that flight that I can remember. There were, if there was a black person, another black person on that flight, it was probably an American, because I remember the first few years that I was traveling to Brazil from the US, I never saw a black Brazilian on a flight, you know. I remember sitting next to a guy, when you take a late night flight from the US to Brazil, a couple of hours into your flight, they're going to turn the lights off, and they'll serve you dinner, and the lights go off, and then you'll wake up and you'll be in another country the next morning. And I just remember I was sitting next to a guy, and he was Brazilian. He spoke really good English. He still had a slight accent, but we talked a lot. And he was a real friendly guy. Didn't have any problems. This was really, I can say, the first Brazilian that I had had a conversation with. I had very basic Portuguese that I was speaking at that time. I had spent a few months trying to learn. I remember getting off the plane in Guarulhos, which is the international airport. And, Guarulhos is a state that's maybe, I don't know, about an hour from Sao Paulo or so, 45 minutes maybe. And I remember when I was catching, I was going to get a connection flight. And the guy who was helping me with my bags, he noted, he knew that I was American. And so he asked me, he says, "Oh, so you must be going to Bahia." And I just, like, I wonder why he asked me that. I knew why he said that, because the point is, first of all, a lot of African Americans have been traveling to Bahia. It's like, it's a cultural hotspot now. Bahia is considered the black state of the country. It's the state where you're going to find the most black cultural events. So I guess this guy looked at me, a black American, and I got off. I was in Sao Paulo, and I'm catching a connection flight. It's like, oh yeah, he's got to be going to Bahia. I wasn't offended by it or anything, but it was just, you come to find that certain comments that people will make when you're in Brazil, it's because there's something behind that comment. So anyway, as I said, I just, even in that airport, first of all, in Guarulhos, and then I caught, trying to remember. Oh yeah, right. So I how it usually works is you land in Guarulhos, and if you have a connection flight, you have to get to the airport that's actually in the city of Sao Paulo, because Guarulhos is just outside of Sao Paulo. It's like a suburb. You catch a bus. I usually, every year was the same thing. I would fly into Guarulhos International Airport, and then, since I had a connection flight, I would have to catch the bus. It was like an hour ride over to the Congonhas Airport, which is actually in the city of Sao Paulo. And from Congonhas, I would catch a flight to Bahia. All right. Um, and so I'm just saying, at Guarulhos and Congonhas, I just remember distinctly not seeing any black people either coming off the flights, getting on the flights, or even working at the airport. You had a lot of, or just mostly white Brazilians, or people who would consider themselves white, even being slightly mixed or whatever. So I can definitely relate how we can see the social disparities and inequalities that go along the lines of race and color, because I didn't see any brown skinned people on any of those flights for the first several years that I was going back and forth to Brazil. Um, so, as I've said before, no matter what area you look at, whether it's in sports, or I could tell you about how race plays out just catching an elevator in an apartment building in Brazil. It might be on the beach where certain people, if you're of the darker persuasion, people look at you suspicious if you're going to a beach, particularly in a place like Rio. Um, I just did a video where I was talking about, beauty contest in Brazil. Immediately, if you have brown skin, then you're going to be an extreme minority in a beauty contest. So it's like topic after topic, and this racial disparity, because this difference in race keeps coming up. It just so happens that brown or darker skinned people are not legally excluded from these things, but it just so happens, oh well, we just don't have a whole lot of black people in this area. The famous gymnast Diane dos Santos explained how people made off the cuff comments to her like, a black girl is not supposed to be doing gymnastics. People will hear, black people are not supposed to be, you're not supposed to be singing or playing classical music. You belong singing, samba and rap and funk, right? It's constantly a lot of things are just racialized in Brazil, even though people like to deny that this is true. Let me just get into this story because if I get to talking, I'll be up all night talking about this topic. So let me just get right into this topic of, again, this happened about a week and a half ago. So you see a black woman in this video being removed by the police from a flight that I had taken before. That the first flight, my first experiences in Brazil was again flying from New York to Sao Paulo and then Sao Paulo to Salvador, Bahia. And this is what the woman who was on this flight from Sao Paulo, this is the same flight she was taking. She was flying to Salvador, Bahia also. So let's find out what happened here. Video shows black woman expelled from flight. They took her by force. Okay, so this story, it comes courtesy of the UOL and Graffiti News websites. So these are some of the pictures here. The black woman is talking to some of the other passengers on board as they're, basically walking her off the flight. So this is, Gol is a very popular, airline company in Brazil, and she was escorted off the plane. So let's take a look at what happened. A black woman was removed by the federal police from a flight that was going from Salvador, Bahia to Congonhas, Sao Paulo on April 28th, without explanation of the reason for the expulsion, being informed only that it was determined by the commander of the flight. So what happened? Before being removed, the passenger, Samantha Barbosa, addressed the other passengers to explain that the problem began because they wanted to force her to check in a backpack with her laptop in it. Carry-on luggage with electronics is allowed, but the airline allegedly claimed a lack of space on the aircraft. She explained that she feared that her device would be damaged and therefore placed the backpack in the luggage compartment with the help of two other passengers. So what we have going on here is that she was traveling, and she had a computer in her backpack, and she wanted to put it in the overhead compartment, whereas the flight attendants wanted her to go back and check the baggage in the check-in. And so I'm going to keep just what she was saying is that if they take her suitcase, her backpack with this computer in and just throw it in check-in with the rest of the baggages or the luggage, it's possible that her computer could get damaged. So she preferred to put it overhead where she could safely put it next to the other pieces, handheld luggage or whatever. And so this is where the dispute started. You see her, checking the baggage area above and looking like there's no space there. There's not enough space for her to put her backpack. An hour later, federal police officers boarded the aircraft to evacuate her, according to one of the officers, by determination of the commander. ANAC, or the National Civil Aviation Agency of Brazil, recommends that electronics such as notebooks or portable chargers be carried in a hand compartment. The idea would be to avoid malfunctions and unintentional activation. More photos from this situation, her being escorted off of the plane. The actions drew outrage from other passengers who posted videos of the attack on social media. One of the passengers shows that she was questioning the reason for these actions, and the agent also, quote unquote, invited her to also go to federal police headquarters. Quote, it's absurd. This can't happen. They took the woman by force, people. You can hear on the recording. Another video shows the comments of one of the officers. Quote, if you can't get off the plane, I'm going to tell everyone to get off the plane and you're going to get off. So I think it's better for you to accompany us calmly, said one of the agents. In another passage of the video, a passenger laments, saying, this is racism. The stewards told me that if we landed in Guarulhos, it would be my fault because I didn't want to check in the backpack. He, a commissioner, had the courage to say that to me. It's not my fault because the flight is 2 hours late or more than 2 hours late. This would be my fault. Can you believe it? This is what Samantha Barbosa, the passenger kicked off of the Gold flight. This is what she said. Sought for comment on the situation. The federal police and the Salvador airport have not yet spoken about the case. Flight 1575 left Deputado Luis Eduardo Magalhães Airport at 10:15 p.m., more than 2 hours late. It in fact landed in Guarulhos at 12:15 in the morning, despite the original destination being Congonhas. The reason has not yet been clarified. The passenger didn't continue on the trip in question, so they removed her from the flight. Sought for explanation. Gold justified the expulsion. In a statement, the company says that in the face of a significant volume of luggage to be accompanied on board, customers collaborated by checking in volumes for free, and that even with the alternatives presented by the crew, one customer didn't accept the placement of her baggage in the correct and safe places intended for baggage, and as a measure of operational safety, could not continue on the flight. Again, this is she's pleading her case with the other people on the flight. You know, most of the people who saw the situation, they supported her, they defended her. They even went to the point where passengers who saw the situation actually tried to help her by making space for her to put her backpack, because they understood what she was saying, but they're going to remove her from the flight anyway. According to GOL officials, Samantha accommodated the luggage in a place that obstructed the passage, which posed a risk to the safety of the flight. The company said it had offered her free baggage check, that the computer would be removed from her backpack, and a change of seat to accommodate her luggage. The airline ultimately reported that she would have to disembark before the plane could depart. The impossibility of reaching an agreement and the need to reestablish order caused the federal police to be called in, GOL said in a statement. In a social network, Samantha thanked those who supported her and informed that she landed in Sao Paulo only on Saturday morning, April 29th. Sought for comment, the passenger said that she would issue a statement through her lawyer. Witness sees racism and removal of Black woman from Gold flight. The journalist Elaine Hazim, who recorded a video showing the removal of Barbosa from the flight, called the federal police action violent racism. The Ministry of Women requested an investigation into the case. What the witness says. On social media, the journalist said that on that night, she witnessed an extremely violent case of racism suffered by a Black woman on Gold flight 1575. She stated that after an hour of a flight delay, Samantha Barbosa could find no place to put her backpack where her work laptop was. According to the journalist, the flight crew claimed that the flight was full and that the passenger was the reason for the delay in departure. The journalist then reports having managed, with the help of other women, a place in the luggage compartment to store Barbosa's backpack. Again, so you see here, the other passengers seeing the situation and wanting to help out, they made space for her backpack. You know, on my flight back to the U.S. with my family, I have to thank many of those passengers who made things happen, because of a mix up in our flight and us landing late and missing one other flight. The flight that we got put on, all of my family was dispersed on the plane. You know, one of us was sitting in one area, another area, and it caused a confusion. And so because some of the passengers, they saw our situation and they volunteered to move around to help me so I could put my family closer together, you know. So I can totally relate to the situation. You know, a lot of passengers will work with you. Let's just do what we can do so we can get this plane off the ground, right? And that's what happened here. But even so, these police still wanted, the commander of the flight still defended the idea of removing her from the flight. Let me see here. So this is what I said. The journalist reports having managed with the help of other women a place in the luggage compartment to store Barbosa's backpack. However, another hour passed without Gold providing passenger satisfaction, Hazine said. Three men from the federal police boarded the plane in a truculent manner to evacuate Barbosa. Some passengers asked the police not to take her. She defended herself but didn't react. Some, mostly women, asked her not to go. I despair, all with a lot of fear, apprehension, and the police threatening to handcuff her, Hazine said. So this is a witness who recorded the video that ended up going viral. The agents said the landing order came from the commander himself, but didn't explain the reasons, according to the journalist. Like, okay, why ultimately do you really need to remove this woman from a flight because of a backpack? The witness, Hazine, the journalist, goes on. She continues. Samantha was a threat because she was a woman, she was black, and she had a voice. She was taken by the police. I was almost taken along for defending her. They assaulted me, threatened me. Samantha's mother was crying desperately on the phone because she didn't know her daughter's fate. I cried too. Other women and men despaired. What they didn't know is that Samantha was not alone. Is that as long as we can, as long as we have the strength, we will all fight together against racism. Again, this is the journalist Elaine Hazine, who saw the whole incident and recorded it in a video. Barbosa's lawyer sees it as structural racism. Samantha Barbosa is an educational coordinator of the NGO Instituto Identidades do Brasil, professor and a master student in bioethics at Fiocruz. Fiocruz, as the Fundação Oswaldo Cruz is known as, what is it? The Osvaldo Cruz Foundation, basically. It's a scientific institution for research and development in biological sciences. Barbosa lives in Sao Paulo and was in Salvador for work. Her lawyer said in an interview with TV Global that his client stated that she had a computer in her backpack and that the airlines themselves do not recommend the check-in of this type of material. Listen to what that just said. Usually an an airline, airplane, well, how can we say the criteria for baggage? This is saying that the airlines themselves don't recommend that you put something like a computer in, the check-in baggage area. He says that at no time did Barbosa want to disobey the authorities and that she only questioned why she was being taken off the plane. He sees structural racism in the approach of the federal police officers. So this is her lawyer speaking. Racism is an inducer, especially in its structural perspective, which defines how each human group will be treated. Samantha is a black woman who has been seen as a potentially dangerous and a person disturbing the peace. If she was white, would she be considered dangerous and taken off the plane? Unquote. This is Fernando Santos, the lawyer, was Samantha's lawyer at the time, who's walking her through this whole situation. On social networks, government agencies and entities linked to the defense of human rights and racial equality repudiated the way the passenger was treated. The Ministry of Women denounced the occurrence of racism and misogyny and declared that the scene is an affront to Barbosa and all Black women. The ministry said it would ask the airline and the federal police for action. The ministry said the company and the corporation owe apologies and explanations after this approach. Fiocruz said that the student was a victim of racism and violence against women. The institution declares that neither Barbosa nor any Black woman should go through situations like this. Every day, Fiocruz and Brazilian society must reaffirm their commitment to democracy, equity, racial, and gender justice. The NGO known as Educafro, considered the attitude against the passenger as repugnant and inadmissible in the 21st century and said that the case is a result of racism. Now, the Educafro NGO and its leader, Frei Davi, or Friar David, as you know, if you would translate his name, they've been at the forefront of championing opening opportunities for Black and poor students to study for the college entrance exams and, getting them funding to go to school. So they've been at the forefront of a lot of civil rights issues and struggles for at least the last couple of decades. Where am I here? The National Consumer Secretariat said it had already notified the airplane to provide clarification on this issue. In a statement released to the press on Sunday the 30th, the federal police informed that it has opened investigation to investigate the complaint. On Sunday, April 30th, the federal police opened a police investigation to ascertain the possible existence of the crimes of race or color prejudice during the procedures for the compulsory removal of a passenger from the GOL flight 1575 on April 28th at the Salvador Bahia International Airport, said the federal police. The investigation was instituted in the regional superintendents of the federal police in Bahia and will remain confidential until the complete elucidation of the facts, the federal police note added. The Ministry of Justice and Public Security, Flavio Gino, used his social networks to reinforce the police investigation. Regarding the occurrence on the GOL plane, the federal police initiated police investigation to investigate the crimes of racism in Salvador Bahia, said the minister. GOL used its website to publish a short note on the subject. We are immensely sorry for the customer's experience on our flight 3C, what am I saying? G31575. We continue to carefully investigate the details of what happened and reinforce that we do not tolerate any discriminatory attitude. And just that last piece, as I've been covering, these types of stories since 2011, that's really a very typical note. Anytime any company is caught with a possibility of their employees showing some type of discriminatory behavior, they always issue that type of statement. We don't tolerate any type of discriminatory attitude. So I just wanted to share this story. I'm going to follow up with this because there's still more that can be said about the experiences of Black Brazilians on airplanes. As I am a Black American, so I can't really speak on personal problems or personal issues that I've had on a plane, but you'd be surprised. This is not the first time an issue with someone Black, either in an airport or on the plane, has experienced. There's actually a couple of stories I have on the blog dealing with the experiences of Black Brazilians on airplanes. There's automatically an attitude on airplanes. Again, I would like to see some statistics on this, just the percentage of Black Brazilians who are found on domestic flights, around Brazil. What is it like? Is it 5 or 10%? I don't know. I'll just say that over the years that I was traveling back and forth from Brazil to the United States and back and forth, it might have been around 2006 or 7 that I started seeing some, I don't know, just a few more Black faces on these flights. Because as I said, most of the flights I've ever caught, whether going from the US to Brazil or flying from one city in Brazil to another, usually you have white Brazilians on there. It's not that, obviously I don't have a problem flying with people who don't look like me. That's not the issue. The issue is, okay, what's going on in Brazilian society that you see so few Black and brown faces on an airplane? So I'm going to follow up with this story because, more information has come out. A lot of people have weighed in on what happened to this young lady. But for now, I'm curious to know what you thought about this article. What came to mind as I was sharing these details? Definitely drop a comment in the comment section. Give me a thumbs up, like the video. Consider subscribing to the channel if you watch more than a couple of these videos and you like the video and the content. And click on that notification bell so that and you receive videos when I put up another one. And with that said, I'm going to end this video here and invite you all to come check out the next video.